questions on this? Pretty straightforward.
It's kind of sad.
What's that?
I said that's sad. We have an ideal property for senior housing,
I know.
and we can't get anything put together.
I know.
I don't know what the hell would it take to get people interested in that. You know, there was, and there was a conflict of interest, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And it's good for the county, but
Well, he had two people look
doesn't
at it.
give us any tax base.
Right.
You know,
We had two people look at it, even before, I think that was
I just
Everett Savanya's
knew the
mother.
one,
Yeah.
you know, Gerard kind of filled me in as the guy from
We
Pamela.
had one before that.
Yeah, I didn't, but I knew there was some interest, but
And that really pisses me off, because it's probably been built by now. 'Cause
I
that was
know.
a couple of years ago he looked
it
at it.
just, yeah, but that happens all the time. People got some for sale, and all of a sudden we got people looking at it. Maybe it's worth more, you know.
He said he
This
was
guy's
ready.
a dick.
He said, yeah, 150, that's no problem, I'll take that.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
all- But then Zavanya screwed him.
We have no other ideal properties as such, or something like that.
Sterling. Got a little color here now.
Yeah. There was, it said here, you know, reestablishing precincts and polling places, and that there was a schedule. I didn't get a schedule of where the polling places are at. In your packet, did you?
Isn't it just here?
It's here,
It's
listed.
just one.
It's just 251 Fork, it's just here.
Well, it's just,
This
that's all
room.
we're concerned.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're working on a map,
Cause it sounded like we were gonna
Yeah.
see all the,
How many
is
polling
just
places
here.
do
and I
we
didn't
need?
see anything,
Yeah.
but,
I'll explain that if you
all right,
want.
all right.
Yeah.
We'll now call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Nobody said, I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will now have a public hearing on the Minnesota CPO Benton County rezoning request. Does
Mr. Mayor,
anyone-
you'll
Yep.
need to close the meeting and recess the meeting and open the public hearing. Thank you.
We will now recess the city council meeting at 5:32 to conduct a hearing on the rezoning request of Benton County. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? If there is, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and your concern. And we ask that they please hold it to 2 to 3 minutes.
Deborah Olson, 600 Dewey Street, Foley, Minnesota. I have 3 questions to bring up. One, it says rezoning classification and the purpose of use is compatible with neighboring. And so all along Dewey Street, the houses face north. And so I'm hoping that in the designs, I know we have some commissioners here, that then the buildings also face north. My other question is, back in 2008, we had a capital improvement that included storm sewer, water, the whole kit and caboodle. And so if we're having city or county buildings and the increased usage of our stormwater, sewer, water lines, who is gonna fund that additional cost? The residents around have already paid for our section, and we hope that then that's gonna be billed all to the county and not divided up again to the residents that live around there. My third thing is, with the additional possible county buildings come additional numbers of vehicles that park on the city streets. So I'm requesting that again, the city of Foley comes into compliance with the state of Minnesota parking regulations, the simple fix, paint some lines, get out there and measure and paint according to regulations, not things like 4 feet from stop signs, 10 feet from crosswalks, because right now, I've asked a couple of people that have parked illegally that they're in parking violation. Granted, they have no longer parked illegally, but it's still a problem, and it's gonna be a bigger problem.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against this matter?
Sarah's pointing her finger at me. Hi, Monty Hitley, Benton County Administrator. So you see up on the screen, essentially the parcels. Actually, there's actually 2 parcels. So this one, which is shown, and then it's got that small island off on the lower left-hand side. And then there's an additional parcel which borders on Grand Street, and it's intention of Mr. Sabinian to sell us essentially both parcel or all 3 land areas. And I believe that that's identified in the action in front of you today, is to rezone all those from residential to a business. So as we stated in our application, it's the intention of the county to explore using this parcel for a future county office building to meet the county's future space needs. We don't have a specific site plan at this point. We wanted to just make sure we could acquire the property and then move to the next step of working with an architect on what a building could look like and a site plan. The purchase was really contingent upon 2 major points. First, of course, was rezoning. The second, though, was determining whether or not the site was essentially clean and hopefully free of any contaminated soils. As many folks know, that was the site of the Foley High School, and during this demolition, there were discovered 2 buried fuel oil tanks. We were concerned about that. We did get some documentation from the owner and from the school district. That documentation did not conclusively rule out that contaminated soils could be present. Our county board heard this morning from Brown Intertech. They did a so-called phase 1 environmental review of the documentation, more or less reached the same conclusion. You can't necessarily rule out the possibility there could be contaminated soils on the site. So the board gave the approval for Brown Intertech to move forward with the so-called phase 2, and that actually means where they'll do some test wells, and they'll take water and soil samples and really get to the bottom of this. Is the site clean, or is there some contamination present? So until that's done, we of course won't finalize that purchase, but that's a significant contingency. And I think that we identified that. I know when the Planning Commission considered this item previously, there were a few conditions that they attached to it, and one of course was the finalization of the purchase. Another was, I believe, an easement and the construction of a sidewalk. The county we were fine with all those contingencies that were associated with the property. So, and I'm joined here by Commissioner Scott Johnson, and any comments you'd like to make? Sure. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
if that soil was contaminated, is that a deal breaker, or is there money from the feds to clean it up?
I'm not sure I've got an answer, but probably the answer will be it'll depend upon the extent and how big of a problem are we dealing with here. Certainly I think if contaminated soils are present, that will require, resources to clean up. That's gonna probably trigger some renegotiation with the purchaser. So I wouldn't wanna stand here and say, of course, it's a deal breaker. I think it depends upon the extent of any contaminated soils that are discovered and what's the associated cost of the remedy. Yeah.
Councilman Dominic, if I could, personally for me, it's a high priority site.
Yep.
Again, what is the contamination, if there's any? I was involved with that site cleanup. I don't think we're gonna find any, but with that said, we wanna do our due diligence and make sure of it.
Yep.
But I would say it would take a significant amount of a problem for us to move away from that. It's a high priority for me. I can't speak for the rest of the board.
And of course, this is an ideal site for the county to acquire to meet its future space needs. We couldn't ask for a better location.
Any other questions?
Is there any talk of what you're gonna do with the existing building across the road then, if this goes forward?
Yeah. Well, I think the discussion has mostly been on, members of the council, Jack, on the old 1903 courthouse. And our board has reached a consensus that we really shouldn't spend money renovating it, trying to rehabilitate it. So the future for that building, I think, is a bit uncertain. No one, of course, has said, let's tear it down. So it may just remain standing for the foreseeable future in somewhat of a mothball, so to speak, if we do build a new building across the road. So it's yet to be determined what is the future for that building. So I guess that's about all I can say at this point, yeah. But again, I have not heard anyone suggest that it be removed.
So I have a question. You talked about, and I guess you flipped back, that sort of entrance to Grand Avenue. Did you have a picture of that? Were you concerned about that? What is your, is that property you're buying? Isn't that city property?
Yes, that is owned by Mr. Sabania, and it's his desire that it's included in the purchase. I think our focus, of course, is on the big square where a building would go. I suppose that parcel there could be used as a continued access to Grand Street. I can't foresee ever building on it. I believe there's drainage under there, there's utilities. It would just remain as an access to the facility, but not for building purposes, no.
So you're purchasing that?
Yes, we are. That is the intention, is to just acquire, and that, again, Mr. Zabani, I think his desire was to divest himself of
The whole thing?
both parcels, yeah.
Okay, my opinion is that should not be a working intersection onto Grand, because that's a neighborhood street. I don't think, I live on Cottage Grove, and we get enough county traffic to not want a further intersection there.
Thank you for that observation. I think the county is open to lots of discussions with the city about what you'd like to see, what works for the county. I think to some extent this parcel was a bit of an afterthought. I didn't actually realize until Sarah pointed out to me that it was under Mr. Sabani's ownership, and we'd already negotiated a purchase price, and I said, hey, I contacted him, and he said, oh, I want to include that too. We said, okay. So I must say, we haven't given significant thought to that, but I'm sure our board is very open to concerns that the city has about how that parcel could be used in the future.
Anybody else have any questions for him? Yeah. Oh, no, you can't speak until if you have a question on it, you have to come up to the podium, state your name and address, and what your concern is.
I'm Carol Duckett. I live right on Grand Street. I don't understand everything because we just walked in, but I'm wondering, who paid for the government center that's already here? The city of Foley? You know what I'm saying, the government center that's already here that you're talking about replacing?
Well, I'm sure taxpayers have Kennedy a long, long time ago.
So it's already been paid for, so why would we invest in another government center and let all that go to waste? If it's gonna sit and there's, you know what I'm saying, cause then you got double fold waste. And as far as putting that into an entrance right there, the traffic would be horrendous right there. It would be absolutely nuts. It would take away the value of everybody's home along Grand Street there, mine including, just because of the traffic and the busy. That's one of the nice things about Foley, is that you don't get all of that. I just think it would be a huge waste, and you're doubling the waste of money, or the money spent. Unless I'm looking at this wrong, because I see you up there shaking your head.
What it is they're gonna need new room because the old courthouse is just not worth fixing up. And that's why we are looking at, allowing the rezoning, so it'll work good for the city and the county.
And right now, they are leasing a building in St. Cloud for their human resource department. That's what that property would be, is for human resources and whatever else you can put in there.
Human services.
Human services, so.
Okay.
I'm Sterling Duckett. I live at 510 Grand Street, right there at that opening. First off, I'd like to ask, who's gonna be paying for the taxes on that? Is the owner and the buyer gonna pay that? And once in the building, is the county gonna pay for the taxes of that property? And why should our taxes go up for that building? I don't care what you put in there. Come to think about it, hey, I see it that if you're gonna build a building and rezone it for business, what's wrong with all the businesses downtown that the buildings are empty? Okay, next on that, is there any other thing that could go there to keep the zoning for the residents? Because the way I see it, this is the county seat. One of my complaints is why I got to take my daughter to St. Cloud so she can have a road test when this is the county seat for Benton. Everybody's working from home. Tear the building down, send everybody home, and they can work from home until it's built right where it's at now. But what's going to happen is that our taxes around that business are going to go up. The road's going to be needed to be resurfaced, because once they get it built, they done messed the road up, bringing heavy equipment in. Oh, don't shake your head. I know.
I'm not.
I'm an engineer myself, okay? And where's all this money coming from? I think there's a whole lot more things to be done instead of trying to bring a business in or replace a county building when half of downtown is empty. But you're stretching it out. Why not use it to make homes for families?
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against this matter?
I'm Julie Terrell. I work in Foley, and I just have 2 questions that may have been answered already, but I missed them. Is there any portion of the existing building
the courthouse is historical in nature that needs to be maintained, rather than dismantled. And the second question is, where the building currently is that, zoned the same way as what you're proposing to zone this?
Monty, can you answer some?
Well, I know the building is not listed on any historic register, so that's not a concern. I'm sure, you know, again, it's a building that's important in Benton County's history, and, you know, we have a lot of respect for that. And again, it's the oldest part of this building, I believe, 1903. So, I certainly don't foresee it being demolished. So it certainly becomes a question about how can it be used efficiently in the future. And we don't have the answer to that question here tonight, but as I said earlier, I've not heard anyone utter the word demolition. And I must say, I don't personally know the zoning of the current government center.
Yeah, I can take that one. It's, the current government center is zoned B1, and which is why this one, B1 would be the appropriate zoning. And it abuts another B1, which is why we could consider that request.
Okay.
Because it's compatible with the neighboring property.
So if I understand, the whole government center at one time will be moved over there, no longer use the old courthouse.
Well, you know, I think, I foresee that we would continue using the newer parts. So there's that portion of the mill we call the annex that was built in the 70s. It probably would remain being used. And then the portion where the boardroom is built in the 80s. Most likely, sure, we would continue using that portion. It's the old 1903 courthouse part, which is unclear, you know, what to the extent it could be used. It might make great meeting space someday. Using these old courthouses is a subject many counties have struggled with, and sometimes they'll just let it sit. Because, you know, it's an old building, it has accessibility issues, it has heating and cooling issues, and it's a struggle to find a way to still use them. So, again, I'm just sort of speculating here tonight how it might be used in the future. I think that's a discussion our county board needs to have at some point. But I just want to stress that as we wouldn't be abandoning the entire, you know, most likely the old courthouse would possibly just sit idle for some period of time.
Does anybody else have any questions here? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Okay, at 5:51, we will reconvene the regular city council meeting. Is there a motion? Oh, Sarah.
Mr. Mayor and Council, would you like me to address a couple of the concerns that I can regarding what was in public hearing? There was a number of questions regarding the utilities and the roads and the street assessment project that occurred. That project has, I think, 1 or 2 years of assessments left on that. That will be paid in full. Even though the county would purchase this, they're still responsible for assessments. The county was assessed during that last project that we did. The site itself is sized appropriately. It's actually sized, it was a school at one point, which is a high-use school, lots of people, lots of activity. The site and the utilities that are there are sized appropriately for this type of use. That was all part of the street project and the planning process that we did. As far as how the building is positioned, that's one of the items that will be addressed during a site plan review process. The county will have to come back through planning and through city council again when they have an actual building layout, design, those type of items will all be discussed as part of that process. And so we do consider the impact on the neighborhood, traffic, parking, all those items are looked at and addressed during that process. Right now, the property is zoned R1, so right now it would be single-family residential. Even if you were to do a higher density like housing, you'd have to rezone it. So there's still a likelihood that no matter what would happen on this property, it could possibly have to be rezoned. And it is located, you know, in the middle of between central business commercial district and residential. So it is a property that can kind of go either way. The reason it was R1 is because schools are allowed in R1 zoning district with a conditional use. So that's how it was existing. As far as taxes, taxes remains in a tax status. If it is purchased by a public entity, it can go into a non-tax status. But that does not happen until that purchase actually occurs. And it does not, like I said before, special assessments are treated differently. There's still responsibility for special assessments for those improvements. I think that's the only thing that I can address right now. There are some items that would have to be worked out through an additional planning process.
Then the question I have.
Oh, you can't just.
You know, she brought up the point, though, it is in regards to the utilities. The school that was there was under old utility usage. And so when they did the capital improvement around there, it was based on what was current usage around the area. And so if additional improvements are needed on the utilities, I don't feel that the residents around there have to pay it again.
What you paid for was general upsizing of mains, the main infrastructure in the road. Anything that would be improved would be private. That would be the responsibility. The mains, you want to go into that?
Finish up and I will.
Well, it's different between, there's mains and there's private side and public side.
When it was done in 2008, it was planned for the future. There's 3 different spots that they stubbed in 8-inch water and 8-inch sewer. So for one block, 1 would probably be enough in reality. So we have they have 3 going into that lot that they did pay assessments on. Mr. Sabania did, so it was always paid. So it's very well, and there's storm sewer going in there too, Jared. Yeah.
Correct.
So there's a stub. So it's definitely oversized for what they'll ever need, even for fire control. Suppression.
Oh man, why y'all do this? Like I say, I'm Sterling. I live at 510 Grand Street here in Foley. I just remembered you said the soil might be contaminated. Are you gonna let Are you gonna let the residents around there know that the soil is contaminated? If it done leaked in that lot, it done leaked into other areas through the ground, through the waterway. Because for one, the creek always foams up. Okay? And out of 2 dogs I done had here in Foley, both of them had cancer. Okay, but the thing is, I still haven't got my answer to is, when it comes to paying the taxes each and every year, who's gonna pay them? Who are responsible? Don't divide it up between us living in that area, you know, and later on, we see a tax hike. You know, they say it's in between a business and a residential area. When did this all come about to say to make it a business? Because in a business, somebody has to pay the taxes. And if you bring in Benton County over to that side of the street, we paying Benton County, and then we're going to have to turn around and pay for the building. And then suffer through all of the extra stuff. Like you say, that gate that's there on Grand Street, that opens up to my yard.
Sarah?
Just regarding taxes, so taxes on this building are not just split to the neighboring properties. Taxes are treated as the city, the county, the school district, we all have our tax needs at the end of the year when we determine our budget. We have all the valuation in the county, in the cities, wherever it is. That is split based on assessing what the assessor determines your value to be, whether you're a residential or a commercial. There are tons of variables. We don't control all that. That's really a set process by the state and the county assessor. It doesn't mean because the taxes here don't get shifted immediately to the 5 neighbors next door. That's not how it works. We as a whole have a tax need. It varies from year to year. Valuations can go up on your property, maybe not the person, you know, a mile away, whatever it is. It's, the whole taxes are distributed based on assessing and the value of your property. It's not gonna necessarily be directly going to the neighbors. It's going to be distributed, the whole tax need is distributed to the whole community as it see fits. It's not something that the city or the county controls. It's a process that's controlling that based on your evaluations. Does that help?
Okay, at 5:58, we will reconvene the regular city council meeting. Can I get a motion adopting resolution 2022-07, approving the rezoning request?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just one thing, Mr. Mayor, the contamination of the soil, I believe, is gonna be minimal, if anything at all. When it was, when the demolition occurred at the old school, they took out soil that was found and they replaced it. So I think, to answer some of the contamination questions here today, I think it's gonna be very minimal, if there's any at all.
I would just like to say that, the motion includes the, conditions that the administrator had, which was was contingent on the sale.
Correct.
If the sale doesn't go through, we don't approve
That's
the
in
zone.
there.
Correct.
Okay, so the motion didn't specifically say in addition.
No, the conditions are identified within the resolution, specifically
Okay.
listed. That
Okay.
the rezoning does not occur unless the sale completes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that was in there, that's all.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now have open forum. If anyone wishes to come and speak, please stand up at the podium, state your name and address, and keep the comments in a 2 to 3 minute time. Thank you.
Does that open forum mean I can talk about anything?
Yeah, but we try to keep it within the 2 to 3 minute.
Right, okay, so I live on Grand Street, where the Dale Street is supposed to be going through, or was supposed to be going through, whatever. I would like to know, I've been down to the city to find out where my property lines are, and they said that they don't know. But on the picture that you just had up there, the picture that I got in the mail, it shows pretty clearly a description of where my property is. So, what is the deal with the property that's supposed to be city, that whole Dale Street thing? Is that just staying, what is that, just city property that's never doing anything? Is it up for sale? Or what is it?
It is a dedicated road right away. It just doesn't go through because there's no bridge there. It wasn't, for the traffic count's not feasible to put a bridge
Right.
in. We do have a main collector sewer line going all the way out to the stoplights coming through there. So, and actually everything out to the east end of town, so all of the sewer. So we'll never, I would think the council would never sell it,
What about to me, like an existing homeowner that's right there that would just, finish out my yard?
That would be up to a council, but I mean, normally in our positions, we would recommend, as like my engineer, we would recommend not to sell it because we have a main collector sewer in there.
Okay, so what if I wanted to put up a fence around my yard? What are my guidelines if I can't even find out where my property is? And where my property is to begin with, I found out, years later that it wasn't even close to what I was told when I bought it.
I can take that one.
And if there's markers in my property, then somebody ought to know it because somebody put them there. And am I paying taxes on just my little lot there, or am I paying taxes on all of it? Am I free to use it as such, or what? You know what I mean?
The city does not, we do not maintain property lines. What you see on the beacon map, that is what is the best guess based on the plats we have on record. Even that map I pulled up there, that is not accurate. That can be off multiple feet, different ways. If you wish to receive an accurate property boundary, you would need to hire a surveyor and have a certificate of survey done, or locate your pins. The city does not maintain pins because people pull them out, people change things all the time.
Sure.
The city does not maintain pins. The best we can do at the city level is, if we have a lot and block map on file, we can give you a rough estimate of what your lot size should be, you know,
Okay.
60 by 120, whatever it is. That's the best we can do, but we do not maintain property lines.
Okay, so then my question to whoever, I have a dog, I would like to put up a fence. But according to the little pictures that I've received as far as guessing my property, there wouldn't be much fence room there. Can I just put up a fence straight down, seeing how it's not being used, and over them?
You need to file a permit application. Part of that process is that you will have to verify your property lines and comply with the fence regulations. So you'd have to come into City Hall, get a building permit. The building official will require you to identify your property lines, so verify where your property lines are, and then there is requirements with the fence code. So your property line, you'd have to be 2 feet off. You can't go onto the city property unless you have permission.
That's what I'm asking right now.
Yep.
You know,
But that's the process.
sounds kinda crazy, but okay.
Deborah Olson, 600 Dewey Street. You brought up one point, the city never maintains property lines or the pins. But and I brought this up before, in the 2008 capital improvement, when they dug up in front of my yard, they dug up and removed the the land pins, the survey pins, but never put them back. Because then if I'm, you know, and you say 2 feet back, well, that brings up the issue about that tree that somebody forced me to cut because of people saying it was my tree. Well, the fence line is 2 feet off. It was the previous owner's daughter that put up that fence, so my line is way over, so nothing matches. And so that would have been a divided tree, so meaning both property lines have to maintain it. William could have had it cut down at his expense versus forcing me to cut it. So back to, the pins aren't there, they were dug up and never replaced.
My name is Wade Mauer. I live at 121 Cottage Grove Avenue. And then back in 2008 too, when they dug up that road to put a new sewer line in there or whatever they did, my pins weren't replaced either.
Carol Duckett, 510 Grand Street. I had a neighbor that just went through all of that surveying for her pins. For God's sake, they were digging up not only her yard, but they were digging up all the neighbors' yards and all of our yard looking for the pins. What pins? You know, and as far as that goes, when pins are in the ground for so long, when you got water nearby and rocky dirt like we do, stuff shifts. So there's gotta be some kind of a measuring besides something that might be moving around in the ground and or even there anymore.
Julie Terrell, St. George Township. I'm on a different topic, related to something Sarah said earlier. So if you have a county building located within the city, how does that tax break out, or lack of tax?
Yeah. Public entities are eligible for a non-tax status, just like churches are, some nonprofits. So if the county were to purchase that building, it would go into a non-tax status.
Right, but then, as the Sterling, I think it was, who brought it up before, so the cost of the building, how does that get broken out between county or city?
That would be the county cost. So that would be something that would be reflected in your county taxes, or if they fund it another way.
So that would be spread out among all the landowners of Benton County?
Correct.
As opposed to just the landowners in Foley?
Correct, yep, because it's a countywide service, yep.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in the open forum? We'll move on to department reports. Police Department, Katie McMillan.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, plenty of good things for you tonight. You received the stat report for the month of February. We had 300 calls. Compared to last year, February, we were at 257, so we are up. You can see the child incidences at the school. We had 19. Gas drive-offs are up. A reminder to residents to shovel their sidewalks. That's what those 7 are, unshoveled sidewalks. Other than that, we had fun with police last week, and we had 17 kids who attended, and it was a success. And then the only other thing I have is March 14th. We have senior frog class from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. here at City Hall. So we ask you to sign up through Foley Community Ed, and it's come and just we educate the public on the scams that are out there. That is all I have, unless you have something for me.
Anyone have any questions for her? We'll move on to City Engineer Jared Griffith.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. Tonight, I have a couple things to update you on. One, the Trunk Highway 23 project that was advertised yesterday. That will be continuing to be advertised until it is let March 25th, and then the construction or projected construction date for that one would be May 9th. And then the second thing that I have for you tonight is the county fiber project. Mark and I kind of have a joint update on this, but as far as that, where we're sitting at that right now, we have 7 miles surveyed from St. Cloud to Foley, so we have probably about roughly 7 more to go. The plan currently is to have the county has purchased a armored fiber, and so they will be running that in the north ditch from County Road 1 over by the Minnesota Truck Headquarters, where they're connecting to, and then run the north ditch along 23, cross along the north side of 25, and then put a vault in that would be northeast quadrant, and then cross to the south and put a vault there. They will then continue along the north side from that north vault and run on the north side of 23 to 6th. And that's kind of the layout, and that's roughly where we're at right now as far as design and our kickoff meeting that we had a kickoff meeting for. Mark, anything you want to add to that?
No, just that we had the broadband committee, Senator and I stayed on that. Talking to Commissioner Gopinski, he just wanted us to reiterate, the county is still moving forward with it, obviously, and they still have intentions to work with the city as they had promised us when we went our own ways, I'll say. I think the committee's been going good and all that, but I just assured Commissioner Gopinski, I would just bring up to you guys that everything they said earlier is still status quo to hopefully, get service to what we can in our city, so.
Does anyone have any questions for Jared? We'll move on to Public Works and Fire, Mark Pattenfuss.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I really don't have much. Happy to be here, happy to be alive, and chasing snow, and I say I don't have anything unless somebody has more tonight, so.
Any questions for him? We'll move on to City Administrator Sarah Brunn.
Mr. Mayor, Council, few items I had mentioned prior to the meeting. I had given you guys that we're doing a chamber lunch and learn on March 17th. I'm going to present a little bit of information on the Highway 23 and wastewater projects, and then Amanda from BEP is going to update on the fiber project with the county. You are more than welcome to attend. If you are interested in attending, please let me know so that I can RSVP you for lunch. But it'd be a great opportunity to reach out to our business community with any of those questions or concerns that they may have about the project. I'm also presenting on Monday to the school board regarding those projects, and also just some of the work we're doing on preparing for housing and development opportunities. They're, I think, looking at some planning and future growth items, and so they just want to have some discussions and you know, learn more information, get more information on what we're doing and what we're at with timeline. We also had a personnel committee meeting the other day with the union reps, and it went very well. I think you should see something very soon here at the council level. I think we had a good conversation, and I think we should be able to have a real quick recommendation to the council regarding the new union contract in terms. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And then the last item is we did get a request for the vet clinic to hold their horse clog event in April again. I made a couple contacts to them. I sent them they need to sign the indemnification agreement as recommended by our attorney. So I'm just waiting to hear back on that. I've reached out to them a few times, but as soon as we have that back, we'll get that on the council agenda. You do need to approve that before they can have that clinic, and you know, I made a couple contacts, and so we're waiting on that. I just want you to be aware that that may be coming, and it may be a quick timeline. I've reached out a few times and haven't gotten a response, so I think that's all I have, other than you know, we're still turning those monthly bills. That's been going actually fairly well. The staff's been doing a great job getting them out. You know, lots of questions, concerns with people at the counter and so forth, but you know, it's going as good as we can expect. We're still going to hold off though on late fees a little while longer, just to give people some time to transition.
Okay, we'll move on to old business update on the wastewater project.
I don't have a whole lot. It's just getting prepped for the bids.
It went out for bid today.
Okay, it did go out.
Yeah, it went out for bid today, and it's 4 weeks, so what, May 30th is bid opening?
March 30th.
March 30th.
Yeah. So that's exciting. And then I think Jared covered the Highway 23, and I think I put the dates of both openings in your memo if you want to mark those down. But you know, we'll keep you up to date. I anticipate we'll see a lot more action on this next month. So.
Okay, any new business? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Oh, the bids